Welcome to a new video! Today I'm going to share with you my Unchained deck update. Now, I know this is a deck that some people may be kind of surprised seeing, but as you probably seen in the last week, I wasn't available. I was pretty busy and also sick, so I wasn't really able to make anything, but I thought I didn't want to leave you hanging with anything for almost, if not a little bit more than a week right now, unfortunately, so I at least want to share with you a fun list and essentially just maybe give you something. And this deck is really fun and very cool, and it hasn't really changed a whole lot, so if you want to pick these up, they still, I think these guys still do really well, and Unchained is just an easy deck to learn. But before we jump right into the video itself, I'm going to remind you that if you want to see more videos like this and help support the channel, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It helps a ton, it motivates me, and I want to make more videos. Let me know in the comments down below what do you think of the list and what have you changed, and give a like to the video if you enjoyed. But without further ado, let's jump right into the list itself. Alright, so jumping into the list itself, we're going to start things off with the Unchained Twin, which is basically haven't changed. Like I mentioned, the entire deck core didn't really change in the last couple, or just in the last year and a half or so, but it's still not really a bad thing. Basically, we'll run 3 of each of the twins, and these are very important, because these are the cards that you want, 9 cards you want to open up with in your hands, going first or second. They're allowing you to perform your plays. Now, granted, you also have 12 copies with the Abomination Prison, which is the search card, which we'll get to it. But the point is, you want to open up with one of these in your opening hands. Now, I've seen some people who cut this card to 2, or just run 2 of this, but I think it's less than correct. I think you want to run 3 copies of Sarama. I think it's pretty important. Now, for their own shared effect, we'll go over that first before we'll move for anything else. Basically, they all share the effect that if they destroyed by a card effect that is not a card with their own name, so for example, Araika should not be destroyed by Araika, you are able to special summon another Unchained monster from the deck, except themselves. So the point is, let's say I have Aruha, and I'm destroying it with a Sarama. He can special summon from my deck another Sarama if I need to, or Araika, because, I destroyed him with a card effect that is not his own. Or should I say, another, not with his own effect to destroy himself, basically. That's kind of the point that you need to remember. As for Aruha himself, his own effect is a pretty cool one, because it's a free special summon. You get to target a card you control, you get to lock yourself into Fiend afterwards, then you pop the card, and then you special summon this card out of your hand. Now granted, locking yourself into Fiend sounds like a little bit of a restriction, but honestly you don't really care about it that much because most of your extra deck is Fiend, and honestly you don't really use your extra deck that much. You may be using it if you need to and you didn't banish it for breaking boards, but the Unchained monsters themselves are already good at that anyway, so it's more of additional utility cards if you need them, so it's not really a biggest of deals. As come for Raika itself, Raika is, as a quick effect, allowing you to target one card you control, which is pretty cool. Just a quick effect to destroy your own cards if you need to during the opponent's turn, to trigger your own effects to get things back to your hand, or trigger, for example, one of your, of this guy, basically, which we'll get to him in a second. So Raika is a very good twin. And then for the Sarama, basically is the more harder one to set up, but still very good. Sarama, allowing you to target Unchained card in your graveyard, except Sarama, and then set it to your side of the field, and then you pop one card on the field, which can be if you're basically just draw into it turn 3 or something, you can just summon it, target one of your traps in the graveyard, set it, and then immediately pop the trap to then get one of your Unchained cards out of your deck, which is really good. Now these guys, when they get destroyed, they're summoned from the hand or deck. The traps themselves only summon from deck, which we'll get to those, and also the spell. Like I said, we'll get to those if you don't know how the deck works. But then moving on, we're running the Unchained Souls, which we have 3 of these. You don't need more, which is 2 Abominable and 1 Disaster. These are the big level 8s that you technically need to summon your Link monsters, the 2 and 3, for the own archetype. I know it sounds a little bit of dumb for anybody who's new, but I think these guys are awesome because they also have some really strong effects. And I also just like the idea that they're giving you also utility in terms of levels, with things like if you didn't banish a Dingir, so that's kind of cool. But the point is, These guys are very, very powerful. Unchained, Soul of Disaster is mostly your card going second. If you are forced going second, you use this card to just break boards by itself. It's like absolutely that ridiculous because it's allowing you to target one monster your opponent controls, and then use this and the opponent monster you already could targeted to link summon immediately into a Dark Link monster, which is really, really powerful. It's also have the effect when it dies to recover for you from the graveyard to your hand any Unchained monster except itself. And it can actually, in late game, become a really big beat stick if you have a lot of, like, Unchained in your graveyard, because getting 300 attack for his Unchained card in your graveyard, which he does include multiple copies, so that's really, really good. Then for Unchained Soul, Abominable Unchained Soul, this card can be special summoned if a card you control is destroyed by battle by card effect. Of course, you can only control one, and when this card is special summoned, you get to discard a card and pop a card on the field. And then, if this card was destroyed on the field during the end phase, you get to special summon this card back from your graveyard, but put it at the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field, and that's why it's a really, really good card, because it's always recycle for you, basically an Unchained Soul, which is very, very powerful for the deck and giving you some options. So yeah, that's pretty much does it for this card. And then for the additional supporting card for the deck, we'll run one copy of Pernkatops because it's just a good card in general. Basically, it's another pop card. It's a free special summon if your opponent controls monsters, and it's just like force interruption immediately if you need to, because it's allowing you to pop card immediately by tributing itself. And then for the Hand Traps, which is the last section of monsters, we have 3 copies of Dimension Shifter, 3 copies of Ash Blossom, 2 copies of Ghost Bell, and then 2 copies of Ghost Ogre to run off our hand traps. Honestly, these are hand traps that you can change depending on what you want to, but I will explain specifically why I run these specific. This one is against Adventure. This one is now right back in the deck because it's also good against Graveyard setup, but it's also very, very good right now with the branded fusion stuff, which is going to come out very soon, if it's not already didn't came out by the time of me posting this video. This is just a good hand trap just in general, and Dimension Shifter is a hand trap that you don't really care about because it does hurt you a little bit, but not as much as going to hurt your opponent because you're not a combo deck. You're kind of like a control break board deck that you don't really need your graveyard that much. It is going to hurt your Sarama, but it's going to hurt your opponent more, and it's going to prevent them from building like crazy boards if you have this card. So I do think this card is very, very strong. But that does it for the monster lineup. Now we'll move on into the spells, and for the spells we have 8 of them, which is 3 copies of an Abominable Prison, 3 Pot of Extravagance, and then double Twin Twisters. Now, Twin Twisters is backward removal that you don't have to run. You can run 2 additional hand traps, but I just don't want to deal with Eldritch and stuff like that, and there can only be 1. I just want to deal with these. I don't really care about discarding that much, although you could technically run Cosmic Cyclone, but basically why I also like this card as well is that it can also pop my own cards and then trigger their effects. If my opponent only have 1 back row, I can set 1 of mine, discard a card because I have to, and then pop their back row and mine and still get a bonus, which is pretty cool. So that's why I think Twin Twister in this deck is a little bit better, but it's up to you. Pot of Extravagance, I think that drawing more cards is more important for this deck than Pot of Prosperity, because you want the resources, you don't want something specific, and you don't really care about your extra deck as a whole. But if you want to run Prosperity, that's up to you. And then Abomination's Prison. This card is a weird one to me because it's your Rhoda for your Unchained cards, but for some reason it's also not an Unchained card by itself. I don't really understand why they thought this card is like going to be broken if it's going to be called Unchained Prison, but whatever. Point is, this card is very, very good. It's giving you whatever you need to. It's 3 copies of everything, and then it's also shared the effects which the traps also share, which is if this card is set and is destroyed, you get to special summon an Unchained monster from your deck, not from hand, just like the small guys, but this is allowing you from deck, so that is a very, very good card. And if you open up with 2 copies of this, of course, it's not the end of the world that you use one to search, and the other one you pop it to start your combos off. So that's why this card is really, really good. And then for the traps, we have 9 of these. 3 Escape of the Unchained, 3 Abominable Chamber of the Unchained, and 3 Solemn Strike. These cards are, in my opinion, are very, very important. Strike, I just like it really, really much right now, especially because of Mr. Albaz and all of his branded friends. I don't want to really deal with that, and also there's some effects in general, like one card engine effects that special summon a monster. I just don't want to deal with those, so I'm just going to kill those immediately if I'm able to. Abominable Chamber of the Unchained. This card is basically a monster reborn or a special summon from a hand for any Unchained monster. And again, share the same spell, secondary effect as the spell, which is Abomination Prison. An Escape of the Unchained, allowing you to target one Unchained monster you control and one card on the field and destroy them, which is, again, pretty good. But mostly these cards are using for their secondary effect, and then you can set them to your side of the field, and they have their own utility. But these are kind of like your ways to just start your engines as well, which is pretty cool. But that does it for the main deck. 40 cards. Now we'll move on into the extra deck. Extra deck, we only have 8 Unchained Link monsters, which you run at 3 each, except from 1 because of the extravagance. 3 Rage, 3 Anguish, and then 2 Abomination. This is the number that, in my opinion, is the correct one to run. Of course, there are some people who also run just 1 Abomination, and I've seen people do that. I just like 2 Abomination just in case. I lock myself into Dark Fiends, and I do have the resources to do that. But the point is, Rage is the card that allows you to steal a monster during the opponent's turn, and then basically used as a link material for a Dark Link monster, which is pretty cool. And then if this card is destroyed by battle by card effect, you get to target one Fiend monster you control, or Fiend monster in your graveyard. Not Fiend monster you control. Fiend monster in your graveyard, except itself, and then basically add it to your hand, which is very good if you want to also recover cards from your extra deck, or just you need some resources back to your hand. And then this card is basically kind of just like the this thing, because it's returning to only your turn, but again, when it dies, it's giving you any Fiend from your graveyard back to your hand, which is really nice as well. So basically you just use the Unchained Soul, the Unchained Soul Disaster, to climb into this during your opponent's turn, or during your turn. Then you take the opponent monster during your opponent's turn, and then you go back into this during your own turn to take another monster, and then the goal is to go into this. That's kind of like the goal of the deck. You don't really do that for, like, often, but that's kind of like how they managed this to work. And then this card is a great card. It's just a 3 pops in 1. Destroy by battle, you pop a card. During the end phase, you pop a card, and then if a card is on the field is destroyed except by its own effect, you pop another card. This is basically just like Pop Card City. If you're able to bring this card, this is just going to give you so much advantage to help you win a game. So this card is really cool. And then for the rest of the extra deck, honestly, just whatever you want to. 1 Bingirisu, 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Phoenix, 1 Unicorn, 1 Trisbania, 1 Topologic, and 1 Zeroboros. Honestly, just these cards are good, but they're not really that matter compared to anything else. Honestly, the rest of your extra deck just doesn't really matter as well, except for maybe this. But like for the most part, is like you don't really care about this extra deck because you don't really use it that much. Because maybe you use this to break boards, but I don't know. Like I don't really go into these much anyway. Because sometimes I lock myself into Fiends, but these are, I think, are really important. Maybe I will double up on these because I just want to see them. But honestly, just your toolbox, you can do with it whatever you want to. Zeroboros is just a good banish card if you have the ability to. Bomber is just a good destroying monsters, and Trisbania is just another way to deal with back row. Unicorn is a spin, Phoenix is destruction for spells and traps, Cerberus is monster destruction, and then you have Ding Dong if you have 2 level 8s to just send a card from the field to the graveyard without targeting, which is pretty cool. But that does it for the list itself. Honestly, I don't really think you have anything that you want to change in the extra deck. I don't think you also need to change anything in the main deck where it comes to the core. When it comes to, like, the rest of the cards, like the hand traps and stuff like that, yes, you can change these cards because, in Master Duel it's a little bit different, right? Like in Master Duel, you have access to things low max C and everything, but like you don't really need to change this that a lot. The core itself, I recommend to you to still stay with the 21 card core, which is 3 of each of the twins, 2 of Abominable and 1 of Destruction Souls, of course, giving you up to 12, and then 3 of the Good Spell and 3 of each of the traps. And technically also 24 because you also count Pot of Extravagance, but the rest of the 16 cards can be whatever you want to. It's a very flexible deck with its core. The 24 cards are just haven't changed, like I said, for like a year and a half. So you have a lot of options to change things depending on what you want to. If you want to focus more for going first, that's an option. If you want to focus more on hand traps, you can cut all of the going first cards that I also run just in case. That's also as well. The deck, like I said, very flexible, very good, and very, very fun. But that does it for the list itself, and does it for the video as an overall. And yeah, now let's move on into the next deck choices. Alright, so for the next deck choices, unfortunately, as you can see, I had to push Shadows and Cyber Dragons to the side because of the fact that Alba Strike Structure deck is really, really right on us, if not already just got released today. Or tomorrow, or like, yesterday, depending on when I'm posting this video. But the point is that these cards will change the way those decks function, or at least I want to see what people will do before I'll decide how to move forward with those particular lists, because I feel like the fusion engine of that deck is just so powerful to ignore. So for the time being, we have 3 additional options with the Time Thief, which are going to be a remake for Dragoonity if I want to, or should I say, like, it will be fun for me. A Dark Lord's deck, a pure Dark Lord deck, not a Dark Lord Despia. And I guess I can proxy, even though my order for some reason didn't arrive, and that is going to be Harpy, which is going to be the last deck profile I will do. Hopefully my cards will arrive. I don't know why they didn't arrive yet, which is really, really annoying. But the point is that I kind of just postponed that for a while because I wanted to wait for some particular cards. But regardless, okay, fine, I can proxy 1 card or 2. That's fine. But the point is, I'm going to go over this again. Time Thief, Dragoonity, Dark Lords, the pure version, and Harpy. These are the 4 options that you have to choose from. Let me know in the comments down below what do you want to see up next. And yeah, that's pretty much does it for the video. So hope you enjoyed and hope you like to see more. And maybe just like refresh yourself on Unchained, although Unchained is a pretty simple deck, but it's still really fun to play. Regardless, remember creativity is the key in this game, although I don't feel I can say this on this deck because there's really nothing really changed that much. Regardless, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.